Welcome, PBO people, specifically Stargazer people. You've been waiting very long, but it's worth it. I'm here with Ben
What up?
and Za,
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
and I'll leave y'all no longer. And Ben, start us off, please.
How's it going, PBO people? We're back with the, at this point, post-week 5 power rankings for the Stargazer division. And we're going to jump right into things with the number 14 slot. And it's one of our replacement coaches this time. We have Gray and the Blackthorn Crashers, who took over Mug's team. Didn't really change too much, I think. I think the Scizor might be new. I'm not 100% sure. But they basically took over the team, essentially kept everything the same. Went into their first game of the season against the Worcester Woopers, and had a really close, really good match, and ended up just barely losing, thanks mainly to being unable to break Terra Steel Colossal. It was a close match, there was some back and forth, losing Mons. I think maybe there were some times where they could have preserved a little bit better their Pokemon. Preserved, for example, their Walking Wake. You can go... Petrunt was still alive. It could have come in on the Iron Valiant, I think, at some points. Obviously, you're going to have to take a Psychic move after, but I think Petrunt could probably take one Psychic move and then hit it back with the Poison move to threaten it. But it was a very close match. Really came down to the Colossal in the end, which definitely came in clutch for Worcester. He hasn't played any games other than this one, so we don't know anything else other than this one game. What do you think, Za?
I've seen Gray play a lot. Gray is good. He can definitely win games. I think that I just don't think this team is very good. So, I think in theory, because he played well against a team that seems to be rising up, and I think had some bad beats early in the season, I think Natty's team might. I think right now they're in the playoffs and they have a pretty good chance of making it and doing something. But I think Ting-Lu and Petron are good, but I don't really. And Screamtail is pretty good, but I just really don't like Ogerpon Grass. I don't think it's worth the points, and I think he's gonna, even though Gray is a good player, I think he's gonna struggle to win with this team because pretty much every other team is better than this team, which he didn't draft it. It's not his fault. So reasonably well played game, and this is a good player, but he already has a 1-4 record, and I think he's gonna struggle to get W's with the squad. So that's why he's down here.
Yeah, I do think the team's pretty bad. It's he's essentially playing with like a mug squad, but he doesn't have Mug's, je ne sais quoi with these Pokemon. This like the rapport that usually comes with running these kind of guys. So I mean, I think we can still make changes, but I know he doesn't even want to make changes. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. He's also got a tough ending schedule. Those are 3 playoff teams, like current playoff teams that he has to play at the end there. So it's it's not looking great. And yeah, like you said, Teal, not the strongest Pokemon to ever exist. Coming in at number 13, we have the Philadelphia Flygons. I mean, yeah, man. I think this team is good itself. Things just aren't really looking super strong for him at the moment. Lost this last week to the Vancouver Valiants pretty convincingly. He had some chances to win. Every week it feels like he has some opportunity to win, but it's a very narrow, lane that he has to go down. He has to get, every turn right, and the opponent really just needs him to mess up once. And if he just doesn't do if he does one thing out of sequence, he just kind of doesn't have the line at the end of the game. Which, I don't know if that's a team issue. I don't know if that's an early game starting to fall behind issue. He got Hazard stacked this week, Spikes pretty hard, because his his removal is Cruel and Noivern. And that's a decent removal, but Cruel ended up not coming. And a lot of his guys are grounded, so they have to take the hazards. And then the week before the Lion City, I mean, it's a really close match, as a lot of his matches are. They're really close, but he just ended up losing in the end. Hollow Knight, in week 3, because that match happened, week 3 happened after our last one too. He did win that one. That was a good game. If I remember correctly, Golden Go was really good in that game. So, he's having, not bad showings, in my opinion. It's just, consistently, it's not really going his way in the end. I think that Lion City game really shows that, where he just barely ended up losing to Lion City. What do you think?
I think this is the one that we had the not a big discrepancy, but a decent sized discrepancy on, because I think that there's a world where Philly's one is like 4-0. Like the last game against Vancouver was a speed tie that he lost, that he probably would have won the game if he got the attack off. Like, it's not guaranteed, but a lot of these, even 2 or 3 losses, it really does come down to one, not really hacksy play, but one 50-50 that he's just gotten wrong. I feel like he's gotten a lot of bad luck. From the play side, I think that I don't like Clefable. I think in this, like, especially on, because the team would be better at hyper offense, I think the amount of turns that like Quagsire and Clefable end up being on the field, I feel like is a detriment when this team really wants to win in 10 turns. So I feel like having so many turns with these frail Pokemon or things that need to position well to sweep is giving the opponent too many opportunities to hazard stack and to, put you in these positions where hacks or 50-50s come into play, where you need to be the aggressor so there's less variance in the game.
Yeah, I will say this: he loves Quagsire. He seems to adore Quagsire. Quagsire is not that good. Like we have it in a league right now, me and Zod together. It's like fine. It's not, but I don't think it's every week you bring in Pokemon, in my opinion.
And I think that it serves a function, but what I want to make clear is, because of this style of team, it taking up so many turns stops you from winning the game. It just makes you not lose. And I don't know that that's what this team should do. This team should be hitting you and positioning you. So the fact you don't have great removal, it shouldn't matter as much if you're winning in 12 turns. It's just not really that important. But because the games are going 25 turns, it's like it's being played like balance, but it's not balance. So you're making the team come down to the opponent's team instead of, because I think Philly actually has like probably one of the 3 or 4 best teams, almost objectively. But I just think it's being played like it's something that it's not. It's like you're I said, you're trying to put Shaq at like shooting guard, and he's still okay, but it's not what it should do.
For example, in like week 1, when I fought him, he led Quagsire and he kind of just spammed Yawn for a ton of turns. But all that really did was let me get up Rain and let me get my big Palafin form for like free, essentially. Like, he didn't really get any progress off of doing that. It kind of just benefited me. He got like a little bit of Rocks chip, but it really ended up not mattering too much.
I do want to say though, just because like I would have had Philly probably up like 3 spots, just because I think he's been more impressive even than some, and his differential shows this, than some of the teams that are above him. And I don't think he's totally eliminated. If this team gets in the playoffs, this is still a team that I don't think anybody really wants to see this. I don't think anybody really wants to see Bax, Golden Go, Thunderous, Urshifu Wrap, Single Strike in the playoffs.
You can't lose. I know that he can't lose anymore. 4-4 is the absolute minimum to make playoffs. I'm pretty positive.
Gotta lock in, Philly. Trying to lock in.
And he's got Lopunnies, is what I see, and I don't love that. I mean, you can get lucky. Lopunnies has some pretty bad luck the past 2 or 3 seasons, but that's going to be a tough one. I will say, I did go back and just watch the Lion City game. He did have absolutely zero answer to Mamoswine. He didn't anticipate it at all. Everything got 2 KO'd, and he didn't click Moonlight on Clefable when that seemed to be the answer, because Earthquake only did like 40%, so that tells me it's physically defensive Clefable. But he just spammed Moonblast until he died, and then he lost 3 more Pokemon to Mamoswine afterwards, because he didn't expect it to be Scarf. Which is unfortunate. For sure. I think out of all the games, that might have been the most misplayed one of his, but it was still a close game. This team has potential for sure. Alright, next we can move on to the Hallownest Heracross, or Hallownest Heracross. So this is Metal. This was our number 1, I think, at the very beginning of the season. Bit of a fall off. A lot of unfortunate losses. So, like we said, he lost to Philly. That was a really close game. All these 3-0 losses are actually really close. His game against me was really close. Rillaboom was really, really close to winning that game. That Philly game where I think Golden Go was doing really good, that was really, really close. The Vancouver game was really close. Like, despite these diffs, I think these games were all super close. He beat Sauda, who's like a really high player like a really high level Stargazer player. And then this Lopunnies game was straight up a forfeit. He just forfeited. Like, all these games have been close. He hasn't even technically lost 4 games. He forfeited one of them. I don't know if... Because I think if he made playoffs, he'd be so scary. The thing is, he has G-Char and the Orlando Magikarp and Nico, which are 2 really tough opponents. And I don't know how much of his heart is in it anymore, considering he kind of forfeited without giving any fight that Sunday. I don't know if he like fully wants to make playoffs anymore. I hope he does, because I think he's a really strong player. But like his last match against me, I thought that was a really good match. I really liked it. He did like kind of sack Hydreigon for pretty much no reason, although he didn't really have a switch into Archaludon at the very beginning of that match. But he has some really cool sets. Like, he had an Assault Vest, Sandy Shocks, Swift Swim Quillfish. I think that's a cool idea. I think he had like safety goggles, Dragapult. I think that's cool. Like, he knows what he's doing. He can build really well. It's just the games haven't really gone his way at the very end so far this season. What do you think, Sa?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta have Holocrest down here. We just haven't seen the results, right? Like, theoretically, it should be good, but I do think some of the sets have been a little weird. I think Swift Quillfish, he said, was a mistake. I think it was supposed to be Intimidate. I think you could have done something cool with Swift, but I'm pretty sure he said that. And I think the rain game, I think he was trying to position an end game and using the assault vests to like just rack up chip, which I understand it, but I also think you could have just maybe done more damage and done the exact same thing. I don't know that he's been aggressive enough with this team. Again, I think this one is closer to being balanced, but I just don't know how good balance is in like Gen 9 draft. So I'd like to see a little bit more offense. I think he switched it up to the Hydreigon. I think this team makes a little bit more sense than the original one did in the back end. I still think the bottom 2 are weird. Like, I don't know that you'll ever... Like, if... Ben, did he use the Tornadus in the rain game? He didn't, right?
No, he used Hydreigon.
Yeah, so, like, if you're not going to use Tornadus in the rain game, I don't know when you're actually going to use this guy. So bring him. I'd love to see him do something. I'm just saying, like, I know he's like a decent number of points, that maybe it could be something that would actually come. But yeah, we'd like to see him in the playoffs. I hope that he locks in, because this team should be in the playoffs, and we want to see OP 8th seeds. We like that. We want to see tough first round games. So let's lock in Philly and Metal. We're locking in.
Yeah. All right, I think we can move on to the Garden City Grotles, who are on vacation right now, so they haven't had their Week 5 game against me, unfortunately. So this is really interesting, right? So you see how many insanely close games they have. They have 2 1-0 losses, and then a pretty bad loss to the Woopers. I still think this team is pretty good. Like, I like the Terra Heatran, I like the Terra Quaquaval, I like Garchomp. Aloe can do stuff, Weavile can do stuff. What I'm really worried about with this team now, because like theoretically, also they could get to a 2-3 record here if they beat me tomorrow, and then they're at a way better shot at getting into playoffs. That's kind of why they're up here a little bit. These last two games have been pretty bad from them, in my opinion. Prep-wise, a little bit play-wise, especially against Woopers play-wise, I feel like she was kind of just throwing out Pokemon. Against Cetitans, she had like non-triple axle or non-ice move Weavile. I thought that was really odd. And there were some really odd decisions in that game as well. Against Tottenham, she like got reverse swept, so like she had complete control the whole game. And then she got reverse swept by Bloodmoon because she let her fighting type go down. Like a lot of just very close, odd decisions going on. Garden City, she's been in the past a really, really strong contender in the PBO. So I feel like just a few odd decisions have really led to a bit of this lull that's going on right now for her. What do you think, Za?
So we depart a little bit because I think I remember I didn't like this team. Like I thought it was at best a middling team. I think it's better with Kukwavil just because Kukwavil might be one of, if not the best Terra captains available. But everybody knows I hate Alomomola. Um, Munkidori, I think Munkidori could do something, but it just seems like I guess it's the poison here, but it just seems like a random guy. And also, I think Magnezone is under. It seems like I've had this idea sometimes, like build a team of things that never get drafted, and I think Magnezone and Staraptor were on my build. So like it just seems like a hodgepodge of guys that are just always a little bit underwhelming. And I think that's shown up in the games why she's just losing on a couple of. If you just make a couple, this is the reverse of Boston Babette's team, where they can make weird calls that are bad, but they win anyway because their team is so good. If she makes a couple of like just even slightly off plays, the talent on the team is not high enough to make up for it. So they have to walk such a fine line that they end up just losing games. You make one wrong move against Bloodmoon and the game's over. Um, so I think I had this team a little bit lower just because I don't see a ton of upside with this outside of the player. And we haven't seen them on their game yet this season. And I don't think that this team piloted with somebody who's either not 100% invested or is just a little bit off. Sometimes you just have an off season. Sometimes you're just off. I don't see this as a playoff team. So I'll say it again, lock in, prove me wrong, but I don't think Oranges is going to the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. I will say she has a little bit easier of like a final 3 games. I think those are winnable games. Obviously, Nico is there. That could be rough. It all depends on this match against me, because we this is extended really far now. This probably could have been like I don't know, but where this game is happening is kind of the final decision we've come to. So I think it all depends on that, really.
Yep.
Yeah, we can move on to Tottenham. Tottenham, a really hard fall off. He's getting beat down pretty bad now the past 3 weeks. He started the season off strong, and we were kind of eating our words, putting him last, and he continues to fall, and I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to fall. I think the team's pretty bad. I think his play the past few weeks, other than like with Bloodmoon, I think with Bloodmoon he's been doing pretty good. I think his play the past few weeks has been pretty bad. And, he's getting beat down. I think he got swept by Garg. I don't know if he was the one who got swept by Garg. I have to check that Orlando game. I don't think that was a sweep by Garg. But all these matches, as you can see, reflected in the differential. They're not close. I remember this game. He tried to do Duraludon stuff, and it just didn't work. And then Fezandipiti just sat there, and then he got swept by Tornadus. That's what it was. It was a really cool Tornadus set, to be fair. But he got swept by Tornadus Therian. And then the week before, against Mac, he
It was the Electros thing, right?
Yeah, he keeps trying to do this Electros thing and it doesn't work, and he kind of just got stalled out and then beat by Hydrapple. So like he's just kind of getting beat by. They are some good sets. Like against me, he got beat by Pelipper mainly. I think Pelipper beat him, the Pokemon Pelipper, and like Light Screen Zapdos.
The Pokemon Pelipper. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that was fun.
So, he's just kind of just straight up losing. There's really not much commentary to say about it. Against Orlando, it was a really cool Torn T set. Against me, it was like Light Screen Zapdos really helped. Against Crown Point, it was just stolen around with like Gliscor and then Hydrapple coming in to finish the job. I just think the team is bad, and I don't know if it's being piloted the best. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think this is a playoff caliber team. I think at this point it's pretty hard for him to make playoffs. Based on these last 3 games, I think all 3 people would want to win those games. What do you think, Saw?
I mean, we said before the season, we kept saying it even the first power rankings, or I said it. It's like the team, and he knows. Like, you drafted a meme team, essentially. It has no defensive backbone. So people can bring these like, you can run sub Torrentee because you don't need Torrentee to do its normal stuff against this team, right? And they're flying resist as Electros, which people aren't really going to respect that much because they're the bottom two. There's no real usable steel that's particularly good. There's no real usable water that's defensively good. So people can experiment against this team. I think I've seen enough Tottenham games. We know he brings interesting sets, and if the set works, it's great and it looks really cool. And that against this high level of competition and with this team, he was going to get his 1 or 2 or maybe 3 wins because Terragren is really good and Bloodmoon can cheese stuff. That's what we said in the pre-thing, and Bloodmoon cheesed one. And I don't remember what happened the second week, but I'm assuming it had something to do with Bloodmoon or Greninja.
It was Bloodmoon.
Okay, yeah. So it's Bloodmoon can cheese wins, and he'll probably get one thing with Greninja before the end of the season. So he might get 3 wins, which is pretty good with this batch.
I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver got Greninja. I wouldn't be surprised if any.
Yeah, it can happen. He'll get his 1 Greninja thing, and that's about the extent of this team. Like, even if you see this team, it doesn't. If you can navigate those 2 guys, and you don't get the weird setup by the Electros or the body press Fortress or the SD double edge Cinderace, like the special nasty plot Meow. You just got to weather that stuff and you'll be fine. So I think I had this one a little bit lower, like because I know he won the first 2 weeks, but it's not a fluke because he won the games. But Bloodmoon is a cheesy Pokemon. Like, it's gonna get wins because it's silly.
I would like to note the Fortress has yet to come. Interesting. He's relying on court change these days. The Fortress has not hit the field. I wonder why. Yeah, it's essentially like having court change as your only removal because he's really bad at it. Fortress. All right, we can move on. Lion City Leech Life. If it was through 4 weeks, I would have had this team higher because I thought he was on a really an upward trajectory. 2 good wins against Vancouver and Philly. It's 2 respectable teams, at least in my opinion. After a pretty bad start to the season, I still think the team is pretty good. I like all the Pokemon. I really like Mamoswine. Mamoswine's come around on me as like just a really good Pokemon. I like both Terra Captains. But unfortunately, just he got absolutely smacked this last week by Iron Crown. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. I think it was Weakness Policy, Agility, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Tachyon, or something like that. Which is a crazy thing. Or it might have been Terra Blast Fighting, because I don't remember exactly, but it had to be for Excadrill. But
I think it was Focus Blast.
Or Focus Blast, okay.
Because he missed.
Yeah, so but he got absolutely like smacked by Iron Crown. Iron Crown's a really crazy Terra Captain. It's really, really good. It's really scary if you don't prepare for it correctly. So I can understand why it would happen, but it is just very unfortunate that it did happen. You know what I mean? And the 6 differential are going to matter a lot for playoffs because I think he's going to be right around that 9, that 10, 9, 8, 7 area. I think that's probably where he's going to operate. And so if he wants to make playoffs, he has to have good differential. So this really, really hurts him. But I do like the team. All the Pokemon make sense except for like maybe Drifblim, but it is a ghost and it has Defog. I think Drifblim with Terra is way better, but without it, it's kind of okay-ish. Like it's fat and it has Strength Sap, so there's that at least. But all the other Pokemon make sense in my opinion. Yeah, what do you think, Za? I think he was on the up and up, and then he kind of got pushed down a little bit here. But he's got an okay-ish schedule. Depends on how Grotles is feeling for the remaining of the season. What do you think, Za?
Yeah, I mean, before the last week, I think I had him like 7 or 6, the same way that you did. The freeze was unfortunate. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if they shared the sets. If they didn't, I didn't see it. That he was trying to glare or Dragon Tail the crown, which is why he stayed in with the frozen guy. but like, you should have brought a. I don't know that can be the only aspect you have against when you see Crown, even if it's not Terra. You got to prepare for this booster speed setup thing because you just lose. You just instantly lose the game if you just don't have anything at all to deal with it. Other than that, the last 2 weeks, I did think, just to say something positive, I thought he was on the come up. Like I like his team. Like I said, I like Mama Swine. I like the Dun. I like Keldeo. I like Jirachi. This is like a fringe playoff team still. Like you said, that differential is going to be tough because even the teams behind him, he's way behind him in differential from what I remember. Like I think like he's 6 behind Oranges and like way behind Philly too. So even if they tie, I guess they have the tiebreaker over some people, but it's going to be tough. You got to respect setup. Like that's a thing to take away from that. Just everybody watching, don't lose to the Combines like store power set. Just say I'm not going to lose to this. If they beat me with something else, cool, but I'm not losing to that.
Yeah, I think we can move on. It's just a bad loss, but he can bounce back from it. I mean,
Yeah.
he's 2-3, so he could still go 5-3, and he would definitely make playoffs if he's 5-3.
Yeah.
All right, up here, I think we're at number 8 now. This is the Crown Point Cetitans. So this is very similar to Lion City, in my opinion. In fact, I thought they're having very similar seasons where he was kind of starting to make a comeback, and he stumbled a bit here. But I think this stumble was a lot better than the stumble from Lion City, which is why he's one up a little bit higher. So I think last time we saw this in our power rankings, this was still Sun, and it's no longer Sun, and I think it's way, way better. And he has kind of his signature Pokemon, in my opinion, now, which is this Hydrapple. In my opinion, this Hydrapple is kind of his guy now. It seems he seems to really like it, and he's using it pretty well. Terra Hydrapple is really, really good. I don't think that's Terra Dio Speed, so I don't believe so. I think it's Terra Ments. I think the Dio Speed isn't supposed to have the green border.
I'll change it after.
Yeah. So, against Tottenham, really strong showing. He just played it really slow and really well. Against Garden City, really odd game. Really, really odd game. I don't know if people remember that. The sets at the end, it ended up being like non-electric move, Raging Bolt, or something like that. But it was like a non-triple axle Weavile. So it ended up working out because it was like an Earthquake Bolt. And he ended up actually winning a game that he probably should have lost. But overall, I feel like the last few weeks his play has stepped up a bunch. I will say I don't love how much he brings Toadscruel. I think he brings Toadscruel, let me see. Yeah, he's brought it to 3 games. It's not that good to come to more than half your games, in my opinion. I wouldn't rely on Toadscruel as a Pokemon. This past week, I feel like he tried to set up with Enamorus a little too early, and that kind of cost him. Again, he used Hydrapple really well. I think Hydrapple is like his main guy now that he really likes. He could have gotten the diff down a bit with his Hydrapple if he didn't get flinched so much. And he also missed some moves, I think, but I think he probably still lost. But it was still like a close, nice back and forth game with Chimps, who's a really good player. So this team's really fat, in my opinion. I think Registeel's a big weakness. I think this team has points. I think this team has like 70 points or something, so I think he can make it better. But Terra Ments, because I think that is what the Terra is really good. Terra Hydrapple is really good. And I like all the Pokemon on the team, other than Registeel and Toadscruel. I feel like if you trade those two and plus your 70 and get like another Steel and another... You don't even need another Ground. Or Grass. Another Steel and like one guy with okay, like Toadscruel isn't good removal, so like one guy with okay removal, like just match Toadscruel but a different Pokemon in terms of removal ability. I feel like you're kind of cooking. What do you think, Za? I think this team's on the up, even if they did lose last week.
I like this a lot better than the original team. I would say this is the most Ice Week team that I think I've ever seen fielded. It's actually insane.
Yeah, I mean, he does have four quad weeks to ice and 2 others.
4 quad. That's crazy work right there. 4 quad week. But past that, I had them also, I think, one spot above Lion City. I thought that they were playing well. Sometimes I think Crown Points of Titans cooks too hard, like a little bit too much, and it bites them in the butt at the end of the games. But I mean, Dio Speed plus Terra Mence, plus just Raging Bolt's a really solid guy. I think I like Toxapex as a concept. I think though the passivity of the defensive Pokemon here are going to come back to bite him at some point. Like Hydrapple just does what all these defensive Pokemon want to do much better while being offensively threatening. So if he does have points, it's probably because he couldn't make more moves. I'm going to assume because there's a lot of moves on that transaction
Oh,
board.
yeah,
So
see, moves remaining 0. Yep, he has no moves left. Tough.
But you have enough here to run like offense plus AV Hydrapple plus like some annoying Toxapex baloney and then like some offensive Gliscor stuff. So I still like the team better than Chi-Yu-San because I just think that's actively bad.
Yeah, I mean the main chink in the armor is Registeel is the steal, right? I think Registeel is a noob trap Pokemon. People in the bottom divs love Registeel. Registeel's pretty bad in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion, Registeel's pretty bad. It takes a lot to lose to Registeel. Yeah.
It's like mega worse Garganical. But yeah, I think he's definitely got a shot at the playoffs. Like in terms of record, he's not playing a stalwart near the end. Like even Lopunnies isn't having their best season. So in theory, he could win the next 3 games. Like it's not out of the question. I don't think his differential is that. Yeah, it's only -6. It's not even that bad. So if you lock in Cetitans, you could get in the playoffs. And Dio Speed, he could do it. That guy's a legend.
He's in playoffs right now. There's a lot of 2 and 3 teams, and one of them has to make playoffs. He could be the one.
Yep.
All right, moving on. At number 7, we have the Worcester Woopers.
What a comeback.
Who are kind of on their up and up right now. So he finally got his first win against Garden City in a game that was really, really, after being the only 0-3 team, I think, at one point. Things were looking rough. And what's it called? He finally got his first win against Garden City. Things were looking really, really bad at that point, and it was a really good game against Garden City for him. Really clutch Scarf Iron Valiant with Encore to stop a Quaquaval sweep. That was really good. Iron Hands went absolutely crazy. Terra Iron Hands, which is to be expected. And then this last week against Blackthorn, really close game, really good. Again, great Valiant with Encore, booster speed. Really making great use of Valiant so far these past 2 weeks. And then obviously Iron Hands did a few things. And also, I don't think Iron Hands did things last week. Instead it was Colossal. He brought Terra Colossal, and Terra Colossal ended up, walling stuff really effectively. And he used all his guys, like he brought Leafeon last week. He used all his guys pretty effectively. I think his team's way better than at the start of the season. He has Valiant now, so like he has a real round 1 pick, like a super threatening one. He has a real like good Terra Captain in hands. He's got Kirim, who's also super threatening. I think the team's better. I think he's playing better, and he's on a come up for sure. And of the 2 and 3 teams, I think he has the best chance of making something happen in playoffs, of getting the playoffs, of making he's only -5, so he has the best diff of the 2 and 3 teams as well. I think. I think things are definitely looking up for the Woopers. What do you think, Zaw?
Yeah, I mean, my man moved Valiant for Orgerpon Grass. Wasn't that the trade?
Yeah.
That makes the Luca trade look like a great trade. That's the biggest robbery of the century. Valiant for Orgerpon Grass. No offense, Mug. Love you. But come on. So, yeah, if you add the best Pokemon in the format, this guy's a factor now, right? He's got Kirim, Terra Hands. He's got Terra Hands, right?
Yeah, he's got Kirim, he's got Terra Hands, he's got Prim, Lando Eye.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't love Lando Eye, but now what Lando Eye is maybe your 3rd best guy, then I think he's pretty good. If he's not the first thing the opponent has to think about, the Terra on Hands makes that a top threat. So you got like 4 real deal offensive threats, and because of how much offense you have, the Hisuian Zoroark actually becomes a threat, right? Because you can do all kinds of stuff now. You can disguise it as Kyurem, and you throw out like Prim, get hits off. Like you can do stuff. You're really skirting with the, letting people shoot moonblasts at you, but you do have Empoleon's doing a lot of lifting on this team, and Empoleon is really good. And Muck is a good defensive Pokemon. This
Yeah,
is a majorly top heavy team, right? Like majorly top heavy team.
although Colossal did stuff last week.
Yeah, Colossal, if you use the Terra on it, is surprisingly effective. It can definitely do things. If this on paper, now that this team has Valiant, this is one of the best teams, right? Like, how can it not be? So
Yeah, it's
I
strong.
expect them to keep winning.
Yeah, he's got Valiant, and then he's got Lion City, and then he's got the Jirachis. All winnable games, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, again, based on this increase in talent on the team, they should win out. They should win all the games, like on paper. So we'll see. I wouldn't want to see this team. This team is really annoying to play against. Like if
Yeah,
Kyurem is the
agreed.
third or fourth thing you have to worry about, that's bad. That's bad for you.
All right, I think we can move on to 6, which is the Vancouver Valiants, up to a 3-2 record after a bad loss in week 3 to the Lion City Leech Life, but a couple bounce back wins. I think it was a forfeit win because that was the week Mug left the league, and then they did beat Flygons pretty convincingly. They had control the whole time. They could have lost at the end theoretically, but it required a few things to go Philly's way. So, things are just looking kind of okay for the Valiants at the moment. I think it's not bad. I don't think it's great either. I think things are just kind of steady, going along pretty good. I think he's got a pretty decent end of schedule that he can win some games on. Like I think he could beat Wooper. Like we just said, Woopers could win out. I think he could beat Woopers. I don't know if he's going to beat me, especially because I won't be helping him for that game, obviously. And I think he can beat Tottenham too. So I think we'll see how the games go. The team is still, he hasn't changed it at all. One of the only people who hasn't changed their team at all. I think it's still really strong. I think it's I still think it's still weird, but it's like weird and strong at the same time. Like all these guys kind of do okay together. If you look at the stat distribution, no one's really doing like great over anyone else. Everyone's just kind of doing okay, which is like, it's not a bad thing necessarily to have your threat level spread out across all your guys. Latios is really doing the best out of anyone, and I think Latios has been pretty strong so far for him. Yeah, I don't know. The Terra Captains are still really good. The defensive walls, Mandibuzz and Glowking are still strong. Tink is still a pretty decent Pokemon. The Cornerstone, he set up the hazards last week. It was really good last week. Ursaluna has been, decently effective for him at breaking games early, which is kind of how he's been using it. And I think that's probably the best way to use Ursaluna. What do you think, Za?
I think that Valiance has been doing relatively well with this team. I do think on paper it's solid, but it's definitely not impressive. So I think I said at the beginning of the season, I don't like Rapid Strike. Like I don't hate it, but like I don't know that the Terra definitely makes it better. But like if that was any other top tier guy, and then the Terra was on Cornerstone, I think this team would be so much better. Like if that was just like something that wasn't locked into Scarf, and then if you're not running Scarf, it's kind of like really limiting its ability to do anything. And then you have Latios, which kind of is the same revenge killer with the Scarf, and that's kind of what he's been using. And I think that's why the Urshifu only has 3 kills, because you've been using Latios as the Scarf / like Spec / Band attacker to break the game open. So they kind of do the same thing. But I mean, I like Mandy Buzz. He can be annoying. I think a ton's good. And I think he's been playing okay. He reminds me a lot of Boston Babettes in that he usually does like 1 or 2 things in the game that can lose the game. It just depends on whether they actually lose the game or not. Like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like Brett Favre. Like he's gonna throw you a pick. You just have to catch it. So this is a team. He is the champion. He's the defending champion. So if he gets in there, he has championship experience, and he has Terra Skeletor's really good. Like I think people had never it seems underwhelming because it's supposedly a defensive Terra. Defensive unaware, like Terra unaware, is really good, and this is because it has Torch Song on the set. It can just be so dangerous and win games so easily while checking something, which is something that even the other Terra unaware guys, they can't check something and kind of win most of the time. Clefable's just too slow nowadays. Yeah, I think this is the right place for Vancouver. Like he's a fringe contender. He's like a 5th seed, 4th seed.
He's at he's at like the very bottom of like he kind of separates like the top from the mid, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He like sits around there. He always sits right around there. Even last season when he won, I think he was like the 3rd seed, but he kind of sits around there usually. Like.
Yep.
All right, we can move on to 5th. 5th is the Lopunnies. They got a forfeit win this last week, and then the week before that, they lost to the Saudas Chimps, but only because they got crit. If they didn't get crit, that Mew did win. But it depends on how long she wants to set up for, because if she sets up for too long, she's kind of asking for a crit, although she did kind of get crit immediately. So, this team is, I think, the same as always. It's still really fat. It's still, like, set up, and obviously that's what she's been going for, and sometimes it works, and sometimes she gets crit. She lost the Tottenham game straight up, in my opinion. I think she got poisoned twice by Gunk Shot, but it didn't really matter. She just straight up lost that to mainly Bloodmoon being really... And then the 2 other weeks, she won pretty convincingly. It's just weird with her this season so far. I feel like she has some really dominant, convincing wins, and then she also sometimes just has some unfortunate things that happen to her. I think the game plan is pretty obvious. What she's trying to do. The team's still like decently strong overall, even if it is kind of obvious. Like the Corviknight's kind of doing what it needs to do. I really think Clodsire is hurting her. The Clodsire is getting like memed on hard. Like Sauda completely memed on the Clodsire with his Raikou, and I think if I remember correctly, even though she won at Lion City, also memed on the Clodsire, like basically making it so you're immune to ground, and then setting up all over. Yeah, I mean, not too much else to say about it. I think if she doesn't get unlucky, she has a pretty good time most of the time. But it is interesting for sure. What do you think? What do you think, Za? I think she's playing okay. I think this is probably one of her weaker seasons, though, if I had to be honest about it.
Yeah, and I don't know that has like that much to do with anything other than just the team's not good, and like that's just a fact, right? It's just not a good team. It's not like conventionally well constructed. It's not so like offensively threatening or so defensively stalwart that anything can happen. And then, as Ben mentioned, if you take a lot of turns to do something, you open yourself up for more variance in the game. So you open yourself up for more 30% poison chances. Or like if you keep stacking the crit chance, yeah, maybe it happened the first turn, but like that's just the way the game goes. If you're running, you're running a Vaporeon, you're running a Corviknight, which don't really do anything, and you're running a Clodsire, which
she's not even running a Vaporeon. She just has it. She's never brought it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. In theory, you have things that sit there and take hits, but they don't do that much. So that's why the setup lost to the Raikou setup. But because of how good Ape is and how like it just being any type on Ape, even if it brings the same set, just puts so much variance in the game. And the Mew set, this team can beat any team because setup is good. Like when we say it's just setup, it's not like setup's bad. If you just spam 5 setup sweepers behind screens, you're gonna win half the games. Like there's no doubt about that. So
yeah, no, she can for sure win games. I mean, she's brought 4 guys every week, and she's brought Clodsire 3 weeks, so she's bringing like the same guys every week. But like you said, Annihilate is so good at setting because he is set up just by getting hit. Annihilate's so good at it that it's really hard to stop, even if like it's pretty obvious what you're doing. I think in the comments she's talked about how like, oh, they just keep saying I'm set up, which is like, yes, that's what you're doing in the games, and it's fine because it works. Like the Chimps game, she would have won with setup if she didn't get crit. So like she's playing fine. These games are going good. The I would have liked to see the Metal game, but that was a forfeit loss unfortunately for Metal, so we didn't really get to see anything from her there.
Yeah, I don't think that Mary is playing. I don't think that Mary is playing bad. Same thing with the Oranges. It's like the team is just not like it doesn't let you make wrong plays or unlucky. Like you can, if you have a really good team, you can get unlucky a couple of turns and win. Like we've seen that with Babette's. I keep bringing that up, but like it's amazing how they win when they make like 4 wrong plays in the game. These teams can't do that. They can't get crit once. They can't get poisoned because they're just not. They don't have that much talent.
Yeah, like another major, like have Corviknight and Clodsire theoretically go well together. I do worry about their passivity if they come to like every game together. I do think that's been taken advantage of a little bit and puts her on the back foot at times when she's going to Clodsire a lot and their opponents are taking advantage of Clodsire. And
yeah, and I want to point this out just so like I won't be surprised if Mary wins the championship. Like it wouldn't shock me. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's going to be really hard, and it's going to be because you have to be way better than everybody else. Like you're going to have to prep much better and play better and not get unlucky. It's got to be all 3 of those things. But nobody's saying it can't happen or that like you can't do it. You could definitely do it. I think Ben believes that you could do it too.
Yeah, but I think low opponents could easily win. All right, we want to move on to the number 4, I think now.
Yep.
All right, so these are the like top tier contenders now, in my opinion. These are the teams that have like 1 loss. G-Shar technically has no losses. So he played his first week this last week after picking up Bandito's team, made a few changes to the team, made it better in my opinion, and he absolutely smacked Lion City 6-0 with Iron Crown after getting a freeze. So this team is pretty strong. I think that all the Pokemon on it are viable. All of them, hold value. Terrakion's here now, but we'll see how that goes.
That's the first thing I looked at when you said everything is valuable.
Yeah, Terrakion's here now. We have it lower in points at least. Iron Crown is now number 1 on the kill board after getting a 6-0 sweep. That'll help. Orgerpon Water is really, really deadly. I think Donphan is so underrated. People don't praise it enough for how good it is at being the ground type on a team. Bundle is an okay Pokemon. It's strong and fast. You got to hit your moves. Comfey is a good Terra Captain. Hisui and Quillfish is really strong at what its role is, especially for the points that it usually costs. Uxie is pretty decent. Moltres, I think, is very underrated. I think Moltres is very good and usually pretty low in points for what it can do. And Braviary and Rotom are both, viable low tiers as well. So the team that he's constructed here is pretty good. All we've seen him do is win a game in a very convincing fashion. I know G-Shar. I know G-Shar is pretty good. I think he's a contender. It's just we got to see a little bit more, but I do think he's a contender. What do you think, Sa?
Okay, so I've never seen my man here play, so I'll trust Ben on construction. I don't think this team is that past the point that Water is really, really good. Orgerpon Water is like a top 10 guy in Paldex for me. Like in the standard set they let in, this guy is so good. Even with the Terra, it's stupid, but even without it, it's so good.
The team is good in the context he had to pick out of what was left.
Yes, that I agree with. I just mean as like a concept. Like if I was judging this the way the same thing I said about the other ones. But with that being said, Crown is crazy. Comfey you have to account for. So if you're gonna have a secondary Terra Captain. I don't know that too high after watching this season for 5 games. I don't know that too high value Terra Captains was the way to go. I think one OP guy and then a second one that they have to prep for, and if they don't, just wins the game. I think that's the way to go. So, with that being said, Crown ridiculous. I think people seem to think this thing needs the Terra to be good. That's not true. This guy is a really good Pokemon just without it. But if you change this, if you just took the psychic typing off this thing, like if you were Terra Steel every week, Crown, that would be enough to make this like a top top tier guy. And then Comfey, again, if you don't prep for Comfey, it will sweep you. Like, it's very, very simple. It only needs one turn, right? I'm not an Uxie guy. I know a lot of people like this guy, but he's also not bad. As long as you don't let somebody set up or sub on you with this thing, and you have run Encore every week, it can definitely do things. He has a respectable defensive backbone, and he has a Revenge Killer in Bundle. I like Bundle as a concept. The Ice typing hurts it to be the Scarf Revenge Killer, but as long as you keep it in that mode, it's about as good at doing that as anything can be, because it can get 45 damage on most things. 40 to 45 damage, and almost nothing outspeeds it. So that's a solid role to fill when you already have the water and the crown to make the progress, and you have a lot of pivots here to get this in. With the Moltres coming, a lot of times Uxie can get in and out, and Waterpon and Crown are also very good at getting in and off the field and threatening things out. So I can see the avenues for this. We're going to have to see how this does against who's he got left.
Lopunnies,
so we'll see.
Heracross, Woopers.
So we'll see this week if he can survive. Can he bring with his 3 at least Encore Mons? Can he survive the onslaught of setup that Mary will throw at him? We'll find out this week.
All right, we can move on to number 3. I think you had them at 2, but we flip it back and forth. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. We've got the Orlando Magikarp here, who dropped Terra Volcanion to pick up Jirachi U. I don't know for this team if that's better. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's maybe better. Jirachi U, in my experience, is okay. Usually usually the roles don't change that much from what I've seen. But I also know that he's going to Terra his guard. That's his guy. He's going to Terra his guard most of the time anyways. And the Chi-Yu is just going to be there as a regular guy. And if that's the case, I do think regular Chi-Yu is better than regular Volcanion, obviously. So, in that case, I'm fine with it. He got rid of Mismag for Dusclops, which is, fine. Without Terra, Dusclops, and Mismag, it's, whatever. This team is, it's still good. I do think Hisuian, Goodra, and Electrode still feel a little bit odd on the team, but everyone else is, really, really solid. Garg has been going absolutely crazy. Really good Tornadus set and win this past week. He did lose to Bandito, I think it was at that point in week 4. A combination of, I think, Wellspring and someone else, if I'm not remembering right. But every other week he's been completely dominant. Things have been way up for him. I just from a construction standpoint, I think the team is a little bit odd at times, and I think in playoffs, people are gonna respect / know the vibe of Garg, and I don't think it's gonna be as dominant. Garg has just been completely dominating people. I don't know if people are when he gets to, if you look at his wins. These aren't bad players, but these aren't, the top-tier echelon players that he's won, right? I think he's going to struggle a bit when people start respecting Garg more and actually, trying to, play around it effectively, really effectively. But he does have really good knockers to get rid of Covert Cloaks, so that's good for his Garg. It's been a really good season for him so far. All his top 4 guys, as you can see there, all the positive, all doing really well. What do you think, Za?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really put them much ever lower than this, right? There's no cogent argument you could make other than I just have a feeling. And again, I had Orlando above where Ben has them, but I just have a feeling that this is slightly fraudulent. This the way that these things are happening with the Garganackle, not even at anything because of what Nico is doing. I just think it doesn't even seem like people are trying to stop this Garganackle. It literally does not seem like they're even making an effort to stop this man. And I like Ben said, when he pointed out at the end, that was the thing I was thinking is that, if we look at the schedule. I haven't paid enough attention to see everybody's schedule, but he hasn't seen that guy yet. At least not this season.
Yeah.
With any
and if you look at the rest of the schedule, he's not gonna until playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He might go in. he might go in as the number 2, or depending on Ben has more games to be played. He could figure out a way to get to number 1 because he has a very good differential, and it looks like he'll probably continue to have a very good differential. So it's definitely possible. There's a world where Orlando ends up as at worst the number 2 seed, possibly the number 1 seed. But I just don't know. I just have a feeling. I don't think that like when he gets if he gets past the first round, he gets to the semis and he starts seeing the Chimps, or he starts seeing the Alakazam, or he starts seeing these guys. I don't know. Sometimes it's not good to win in blowouts. Like, you should play some close games, because I don't know that he's gotten to experiment with what happens when that one setup set doesn't work. And I don't want to sound like I'm being negative, because he's had a good season. Every time I watch the games, I get this feeling that like just something seems off with this, like in my gut. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. The game that impressed me the most so far was this last week with the
The Torn set was good.
That wasn't
Torn set was
Garg,
good.
and it was a really
Yeah.
good Torn set, and I liked that game a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
Because that shows creativity, and like it worked, and like it had nothing to do with Garg, and I thought it was really, really strong. I thought it was a strong showing. Because I will say I do think Garg could have just won that game, because I think his Covert Cloak guy was a Duraludon or something stupid like that,
PBO.
or non-existent.
Respect this Gargantical. I don't want to see Gray. I'm telling you right now. If you see this video, if Gray probably won't watch this far into the video, but somebody tag him in it in the timestamp in the comments. Gray, don't lose to Gargantical. Anyone else?
If Gargantical gets like 3 kills, Gray, come on, man.
Gray, you're banned if Gargantical gets 3 kills. Soaring, co-sign it. He's banned.
I'll add him in DMs. Don't worry. I'll make sure he knows.
Also, I do want to shout out Fenzandipiti. I think Fenzandipiti is rapidly rising my rankings as a really, really valuable draft Pokemon. I think draft is easily where it's the best, and I think in draft it's actually crazy how strong it is at being a wall and a pivot. And I think it has like it's like the Clefable of like just enough defenses to like take one hit on each side, but it also has pivoting, and it can poison stuff.
The ability is crazy.
It can poison stuff while pivoting. It's just so nice at being a glue guy to like come in, take a hit, and then pivot out. Like, if you ever need to like not necessarily slow the game down, but like pause. What is my opponent doing here? Let's take a hit. Let's go Fez. You know what I mean? Like let's just go Fez. It's such a nice Pokemon to do that. It kind of operates similar to Torn T. But what's it called? It's worse than Torn T, obviously, because it's not as fast. It doesn't have regen, and it doesn't have knockoff. Yeah. But in exchange, it can poison stuff. It has a really nice typing in Fairy Poison. I just think Fez, Puma won a season, not PBO season, but a season in a different league with Fez. And then very recently, a guy I know, Mano, he won a season with Fez, and the Fez in the championship absolutely dominated. It just ate every hit. I just think Fez is just really, really good.
Fenzandipiti has moved into that league of like guys that go on every team. Like you fill out the team with your Empoleon and your Fenzandipiti. It goes on every team.
Its roll compression is insane. It's your poison, it's your fairy, it's a wall, it's your pivot. It's a 99 space speed. It's so fast. Like for a wall, it's so fast.
Yeah, taunt, roost, U-turn.
Which is crazy because like when the DLC dropped and we saw this thing's stats, we thought it was so whack. We thought this thing was gonna be like a fast special attacker. But I think if it was a fast special attacker, it would be worse than what it is now.
Way worse.
You know what I mean? It would be way worse than what it is now. Which is so you gotta respect Fez and kind of what it's become and what it is.
Yeah. Big Fez here to stay.
Yeah, I think Fez is a really good which is funny because I don't even know if it's going to be in Gen 10 because it's kind of like a Gen 9. I doubt it actually, but it's like a Gen 9. What's it called?
Bring
Legendary.
It back. Yeah. Bring it back. Give it Encore. Encore Fez. Make it happen.
Give it Knock. Give it Encore. Give it Toxic Spikes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Fez is really strong. I think we can move on to 2. And at number 2, I have the Saudas Chimps. You could flip 2 and 3 back and forth either way. I don't particularly care. But I am a little bit more impressed. The past 3 weeks, he's won 3 games, and he has had some stronger competition than Orlando was my main thing. Although he did, like all 3 of his past 3 guys were playoff teams. Although I believe he did claim a forfeit win against Bandito. He did crit Lopunnies, and then he did just straight up beat the Cetitans. But his one loss is against Metal. I think Metal is going to be a trap game from here on out, just because people see his record and they think they can beat him. But I think Metal is really, really good. So I don't think that's a bad loss at all. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a bad loss to lose to Metal. I still think the team is really strong with the Terra Lando and the Terra Raikou. Is it Terra Lando or Terra Hatterene? It's Terra Lando.
It's Lando and Raikou.
Yeah, Lando and Raikou. I think those are really strong Terra Captain options. He likes to bring the Terra Raikou every week, but I think Terra Lando is also really, really good to have in the back if you want. This Raikou has been going absolutely nuts. He's been really popping people off with it. Darkrai, 3-1. That seems like a very on a good team, that seems like a Darkrai stat where it's okay, it's not spectacular. It's got 3 cleanup kills. That's what you expect from Darkrai. Sinistra, with the Glamora blocking spin. I think all this makes sense. The team still, he hasn't made any changes. It still makes complete sense. He's winning games. I've been impressed. I was particularly, even though it ended up being a win via crit, I was particularly impressed in the Lopunnies game with the Raikou plan. And I think he's just been playing really solid. All his teams make sense. All his the construction makes sense. I think he deserves to be up here. I think he's a strong contender for the championship this season. I think I picked him to win this season, if I remember correctly. What do you think, Mel Mars?
Yeah, I think that Chimps is definitely a contender. I think Raikou is one of those things that gets a massive benefit. It doesn't get the notoriety anymore, but Raikou actually has very good bulk, especially special bulk. Back in the day, this was one of the premier special tanks in the game, back when it came out, which is weird to think about now, but it's not frail. If people have it in this mind, Raikou's frail. So if you put it into a defensive typing and you do that setup set, it's not Suicune bulk, but it's well above average, and you could do the fact that it already has Scald. It has a lot of tools, because you don't need to tear this ice. You can tear it, water it, already has the stab. You can do all kinds of things with this, right? But people have to play around the Lando Terra. You have to play around, Scarf Terra Flying. If you don't, you get swept by it. So that's good utilization of the Terra types, because you can exert the pressure with Lando and bring it to the game and put Flying on it. And you can have it if you need it, but you never actually have to use it. Some of the parts are weird. I like Hatterene. He originally had Terra on the Hatterene, and I remember he posted in one of the chats, and I said, you should probably put it on Lando. And it is better on Lando, but I think even without, I think Hatterene, we've done some mocks where Hatterene was really good. And I think it could do stuff. Gambit, I almost think Gambit has become underrated at this point, that people think it's not a threat in draft. No, it's still good. It can still do stuff. And then he has the screen support, and you have to account for the Darkrai. He has the sticky web option, so he can go ban Lando. And then Chimps just wins most of the games because he plays well. So the fact he has a pretty good team and then he's playing well, his strategies aren't super predictable, but also aren't mega janky. So he's definitely a contender to win. Nobody wants to see this guy, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the team's really good. I think Araquanid's underrated. I think it's a very strong Pokemon. Yeah. I think Terra Raikou, for example, I have him week 6. I don't know. We'll see with the Garden City game. If I had to guess, I would guess this might be my first loss. I think Raikou annihilates me. We'll see.
No, Munga shuts him down. You good? Oh shit! I gave the tech away. I'm sorry.
We can go to number 1. All right. So coming in at number 1, it's me. Mainly just because I'm undefeated so far. I still haven't played my week 5 game, mainly because it's been, delayed. for a long while now. Things have been, it's rain, but it's really strong rain. Both the Swift Swimmers, as you can see there, are doing really, really good so far this season. Overquill cleaned up this last week against the Heracross, against Tottenham. What's it called? I believe it was really Pelipper against Tottenham, Pelipper, and Archelodon. Archelodon's doing a really good job at like breaking early on all these games. It did it against Heracross, it did it against Tottenham. It gets like 1.5 kills early, and then it switches out, and then like the team's broken open, which allows the Swift Swimmer to come in and kind of do some stuff in the game. I think Zapdos and Palafin are both doing their jobs pretty well. They're both pretty strong Pokemon that I really like. I enjoy using. Even though it's 1 in 3, I think the Treads is doing its job, which is usually get rocks up early or put some pressure on if it needs to, and then act as a sack when it needs to. I think everything's kind of functioning as it should. It is rain, but it's about as good as rain can be. I do worry late in the season and like in playoffs against better opponents if this is just going to get countered a little bit easier than it has been so far. But you can't really argue with an undefeated record so far. No game has necessarily been super close. Like the game against the Heracross was like technically, like if there was a little bit more chip on Overquill, there was a way he could have won with Rillaboom. But like no game has been out of control for me so far. I think. What do you think, Sa?
Yeah, mainly what you said. Like, I don't know that anybody has really gone into the weeds to really analyze how to play against this, only because for the most part what things are going to do. But you do have a lot of options. So, like, Overquill offensively, I don't think people have realized is like actually really good when it has speed. So people are not preparing for this to be a sweeper, and I think at least twice it's worked out pretty well. There's only so much you can do with the Barraskewda, but I think I've said nobody's bringing like Rocky Helmet and Door. Nobody's really setting up any hazards that I remember. Like nobody's really spiked or like tried to limit entry. Natty tried to get kind of creative with the cryo set, which is stuff you can do when you kind of know what your opponent's going to do, is you can build like hyper specific sets, which I don't know that we've seen that much. So, but it's kind of like the Garganical thing. I mean, until somebody does it, I can keep saying, like, you should play offense against rain. You shouldn't play defense because it doesn't work. You just need to attack fast, get a spike up, limit the entry for the Barraskewda, because if it's boots, it's not going to be as useful. And it's weird to say, but, like, the odd man out on this team sometimes is almost the Palafin, because you don't seem to really need it to win. I think that's what's going to come up in the playoffs, is if people start really hyper-focusing on this Barraskewda, they're going to start getting swept by the Palafin, which I think it's going to show its value against the better players, because they're going to hyper-focus on the rain part of it and not take into account that the Palafin has no need for the rain to be good. The Arch has been breaking stuff open. It's been doing what it's supposed to do. There's also modes on this team. Like, we haven't seen webs come out at all. And, I mean, Mienshao as an individually strong Pokemon hasn't come once. So if people just don't see this come ever, and then, like, Ben just brings this out randomly, like Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Mienshao, or Assault Vest, Life Orb, all kinds of sets. This team has a lot of things. Because of the increase in points, you could really abuse some of the options that this is relatively functional outside the rain. Like, you can run Palafin, Treads, Zapdos, Overquill, Riombi, Mienshao, and like that's an okay team that could win without any aspects of the weather. So while I do think people could do more, just because you could doesn't mean that, one, they'll ever figure it out, or two, they could actually execute it against the offensive pressure. So I think I picked this team to win, and I don't really see any reason to change my mind.
Yeah, I think things have been going well so far. I don't see anything too like bad about the team. I think I've got all my bases covered. It really just comes down to how the opponent responds, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because rain is all about the opponent's response more than anything.
Yeah.
All right. I think with that, we are good. to say peace out. Thank you for watching, PBO people. It's been a good 5 weeks. We're in the second half now. We'll see you in a few more for another update, and then probably one more right before playoffs. Probably a playoff preview or something. That'll be fun. Thank you for watching. Peace.